the schedule. That's the scheduling. That's the scheduling of the ECB. That's the priority. The game could finish in October.
Unlikely to be weather affected then.
Unlikely, yes. No early morning mists or dew.
Maybe
No.
frost on the pitch.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Brian.
You know, he's getting.
I remember a game at Buxton, and I don't know Derbyshire were playing, but Snow stopped play. That was in June, wasn't it?
Yes, that happened.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It was Dickie Bird umpiring as well. It was Dickie Bird again. It was Dickie Bird. Always happens when Dickie's present. It was Dickie Bird. Yeah.
I once played a football pre-season friendly at Buxton and it snowed then.
Aye. Pre-season.
Pre-season friendly. It snowed.
Wow.
Oh. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. Sorry I'm late, but better late than never.
Right.
Busy.
Good job I haven't got a job.
You missed a priceless visit from John in the first one, in his hospital bed.
Oh, what's the matter?
He was having a lobotomy.
He's had an operation.
Oh, right.
But it was priceless.
Yeah.
So without further ado, and to give Chris as much time as he needs, we'll move on. Chris is going to talk about one of our heroes as a blade, a hero, Alan Hodgkinson, and he's going to do it in two parts. So over to you, Chris.
Thanks,
Can I just, before you start, Chris?
Hang on.
Can I just excuse myself?
Yes.
But I'm in terrible trouble with Talk, and they're on the phone now. So
go and
I'll leave.
Sort
All
it.
right.
Sort
See you
it.
next time.
See you next time.
People always tend to leave in droves when I come on. And I can't honestly blame them.
All right, Chris.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's two parts because this part is more or less the careers of Alan Hodgkinson, and part two is really more personal recollection. So I asked Keith if I could do it in that way. Somebody may have spotted that this has been set up in some way. It honestly hasn't. When I said I'd do this, I had no idea that yesterday was the anniversary of Alan Hodgkinson's birthday in 1936. And sometimes coincidences are just amazing things. Yeah. So I'm now going to take the opportunity to dedicate this to Hodgie and the anniversary of his birthday yesterday. I've called it Careers because Alan was a legendary character in world football for over 60 years. He kept goal himself, but he taught others how to do it. Mm-hmm. He had, in fact, several careers with perhaps more accolades for his own performances than due credit has been given him for his unique coaching at the highest levels. I've got a few photographs, some of which I don't think have been seen before. That one I just opened up with. So, you know, this is Alan Hodgkinson as a young man keeping goal for England with a massive crowd behind him, and that was Hodgie in the late 50s.
Yeah.
So his early playing career, he was born in Lawton, near Rotherham in 1936, and he began his career with Worksop Town as a 15-year-old prodigy, very, very good player. And he played in the very tough Midland League, making his debut against Halifax Town. And he signed as an amateur, first of all, for Sheffield United in 1953. And Worksop Town got 250 quid in transfer fees. Wow. This was at a time Alan joined United when the great Ted Bergen was United's long-standing goalkeeper. Well, at 17, he was offered, unsurprisingly, professional terms by United's manager, a man called Reg Freeman, and he gave up his job as a butcher's boy at the local co-op, and he accepted United's offer of £7 a week, which in 1953 represented to a 17-year-old a small fortune. He became the regular reserve team goalkeeper, and he made his first team appearance in a friendly game at Bramall Lane to open the new floodlights. And he played with Jimmy Hagan on that night in April 1954. So Alan Hodgkinson started his career with Hagan as a teammate. That's quite extraordinary. On the 28th of August 1954, a few months later, United had started the season really well. They'd let 10 goals in and lost both matches. And Alan was given his first team debut, which happened to be at a small club called Newcastle, who were top of the league and included the centre forward, the great hero, Jackie Milburn. Well, Hodgie, who played apparently brilliantly, United won 2-1 in front of 52,000 Geordies. So that went down well up there. And Alan's career began. But the presence of Ted Bergen and his own national service, which he served as in the army in the Royal Signals, that sort of got in the way to a degree. His development as a goalkeeper did continue, however, because he got selected for the British Army 11 on numerous occasions, and he had teammates like Duncan Edwards, Bobby Charlton and Dave Mackay in the England Army team.
Yeah.
During the time he played for the Army, he got called up for England under 23 against Denmark. And he went on to play under 23 games and for the Army in front of massive crowds in Europe, including Scotland at Ibrox. So Alan was demobbed in 1957, and following the appointment of Joe Mercer to become United's manager in 55, all of this eventually meant he would become United's first team keeper. And I've got a couple of pictures here. This is one of the earlier pictures. This is United. Can you see that okay, guys? This is United in 1958. Back and left is Joe Mercer with Hodgie next door to him. In this season, Alan Hodgkinson made 50 appearances for United. 50. And they talk about rotation now. He just played games. He famously kept goal in many big games. Look at the crowd there. That's against Sheffield Wednesdays. They're making a save against the Wednesday, which I was hoping to show John. So he'll have to catch up later. And in that team I've just shown you, became the stalwarts of United's defence throughout the 60s. Yeah. I would think several of you can name those defenders and Alan Hodgkinson. But the back row is Caldwell, Hodgkinson and Graham Shaw. And the front row is Brian Richardson, Joe Shaw and Jerry Summers. Yeah. Sure. And that defence played over 2,500 matches together in total. They made their first appearance together in 1957, and they went through the 60s as United's stalwart defenders. Brilliant defence. Alan's career in goal spanned 3 separate decades, and it ended in 1971 with his final ever appearance in a friendly at Chesterfield in January. Alan Hodgkinson was very small for a goalkeeper by today's standards. He was only 5'9", but he was a massive presence, and he was a sound presence in United's history. Just to show you Hodgie in action, this is at White Hart Lane, and I think you can see Hodgie tipping one over the crossbar. This is 1967 in Division 1. I was at that game. Probably Keith was as well. Yeah. In 71, this is, I think, the final picture. This is his final season with Sheffield United as a player. And I believe this is probably the last picture. Can you see that okay, guys? That's a picture taken of Sheffield United with having won promotion, it looks like they took a picture after the season had been completed. Alan played 24 times that year before losing his place to the other goalkeeper, John
Just pull
Hope.
it away a shade, Chris.
Okay.
That's it.
Any good? So
Yeah.
I think that's the last picture that Alan was on as a player. So it's quite a nice picture to have this morning.
Yeah.
Alan's agility, faultless technique, bravery, reliability, brilliance meant he created many records. He finally totaled an amazing 576 league appearances, 675 games in total, which is second only to the great Joe Shaw in the entire history of the club. And Alan also holds the record for the most FA Cup ties, 52 in the history of the club. In 17 seasons of playing for Sheffield United, Alan Hodgkinson played 35 matches or more in a season on 13 separate occasions. He only missed 26 league games between August 57 and May 1971.
Wow.
He was a very proud member of United's promotion-winning teams, both in 1961, which featured the great defence, and a decade later. Not many players have done that. 10 years later, he's in another promotion-winning team in 71. In 68, Alan was awarded a testimonial season, and his committee staged 2 games consecutively at Bramall Lane, both featuring Wednesday. They played a Legends team. Hagan, actually Jimmy Hagan and Joe Shaw both played in the testimonial for United, and Redfern Froggatt played for Wednesday in that Legends team. And that was followed by a full-on first team game, Wednesday versus United, which ended in a 2-2 draw. Very big crowd, but I'm going to say more about this benefit in part 2. Alan played for no other club in his entire career, and he is remembered, for having the safest hands in the game. It's very difficult to imagine any other keeper letting in fewer, softer goals. Alan started his career with the likes of Hagan, Ringstead and Joe Shaw, and he finished in a team with Tony Curry, Alan Woodward, Len Badger and Ted Hemsley. What an amazing career. So I'd like to move on now. I hope you found that interesting. Some stats there which I find just amazing, and I know them. His England playing career. Hodgie was also an international player. He won 5 full caps and 7 under-23s caps. Both of which he made his debut in 1956-57. In fact, he made his full England debut after just 17 matches after his return from the army. And he played he made his debut against Scotland, small game against Scotland at Wembley in the home internationals. His teammates on the day included Billy Wright, Stan Matthews, Colin Granger of Sheffield United, and a bloke called Tom Finney. This picture, I hope, is interesting. Can you see that, guys?
Yeah.
That's pre the game, 1957, and that's what they call a training run. And you'll notice that the goalkeeper, Alan, is jogging along with the rest of the team. There is no specialist training for goalkeepers.
Yeah.
At the match itself, there's Alan behind Billy Wright, the England captain, and George Young, the Scottish captain. And out they come to play in a big game. After 59 seconds of that match, Alan picked the ball out the net 1-0. So that was the first thing he actually did, pick the ball out the net. But then he went on, and England went on to win 2-1. So his first game ended in victory. Alan also played against Denmark, Wales, and against the Republic of Ireland in World Cup qualifiers. He was never on the losing side for his country. Just nipping back to that Scottish game, anyone tell me who the picture of the player is getting rid of the ball in front of Alan? Anyone reckon?
Is it Duncan Edwards?
Duncan Edwards.
Yeah.
And that flat cap, that corduroy cap that Alan is wearing became, I think, his lucky charm. He wore that throughout most of his career. In 1958, Alan was in the World Cup squad in Sweden. And in 1962, he was in the World Cup squad in Chile as the second choice behind the legendary Ron Springer, but he didn't actually play in a game. And he was on the bench for England on 40 other occasions. He was the substitute or reserve goalie. I've never seen this picture before, but I found it recently. I believe it's not captioned, but I believe this is England's squad for Chile in 1962. You can pick out certain players, including Alan. You can certainly pick out Bobby Moore, Bobby Charlton, and numerous other players in the team at that time. So that's the makings of the 66 World Cup team. There's a lot of lads there. I think Wilson and Cohen are in there as well. So there's Alan in his England shirt with Ron Springer.
Yeah.
So another career then for Alan was his management career, because after he'd retired from goalkeeping in 1971, John Harris at Bramall Lane, the manager, offered him the role of reserve team trainer coach. And he did that for 4 seasons. And he won during his time with the reserves 2 youth international tournaments in Cyprus. He was very proud of that. But in 1975, he basically got a call from a long-time friend, former colleague from that great defence, Jerry Summers. And Jerry Summers asked him to become his assistant manager at Gillingham. And both he and Jerry Summers stayed at Gillingham, trying to get them promotion for 6 seasons between 1975 and 1981. Well, in 1981, they both need work because, as you can imagine, they got the boot. They didn't get promotion, and so that was the end. But so in 1981, Alan is a fully qualified FA coach, and he realises that there isn't one club in Europe that's got a specialist goalkeeping coach, not one. And he needs income. He's got a young family to support, and he's now living in Rugby in Warwickshire. So he's got to find work. So he then went into professional goalkeeping coaching, and he wrote to every club in the Football League offering his services. And he was completely overwhelmed by the multiple replies and requests for his help. He was staggered. He couldn't do it. He had to be selective. Up to this point, goalkeepers have had no support, no technical support. They trained with the outfield players, and Alan decided he would create this support and pass it on. He'd pass it on to individual players, clubs that would pay him to do it part-time, and eventually he would work for England, Scotland, and UEFA. He was considered the expert. He was the man to go to. He worked for numerous clubs, including Coventry with Gordon Milne, Everton, Man City, Villa, Leicester, Watford with Graham Taylor, Sheffield Wednesday with Trevor Francis, Oldham with Joe Royle, Gillingham and Birmingham. But he's probably most best remembered for working for 7 years for Alex Ferguson at Man U. And he is fully credited with the key role of deciding on the potential, then recommending to recruit and ultimately training Peter Schmeichel at Old Trafford. Alan is on record as saying that in his opinion, Schmeichel, along with Gordon Banks and Lev Yashin, is one of the top 3 keepers that has ever been. That's quite something. And Alan was massively responsible for that. There's a picture here from Alan's own collection of pictures. This is taken at the Man United training ground, and you can see Alan there with Schmeichel and Van der Hau. I think it was Van der Hau, the reserve keeper. And they're in the mud. It's not glamorous. They're training. I know from what I've read that Schmeichel is forever grateful for what Alan did for him in his career. So now we move on to a Scottish goalkeeping coaching career, another career. In '86, Andy Roxburgh had already asked Alan to conduct coaching at under 23 level for Scotland. In the 86, he was appointed manager of Scotland. Within 1 week of his appointment, he had already signed up Alan Hodgkinson as the permanent Scotland goalkeeping coach. He was, in fact, the first international specialist goalkeeping coach ever. As a member of the team under Andy and then under Craig Brown, Alan was proud to be part of the national side that qualified for four major tournaments, which included 2 World Cups in 1998 and 2 European Championships in 92 and the Euros in 96. And it was at this time south of the border that Hodgie was responsible for coaching and developing Andy Gorham, who emerged as one of the top goalkeepers in world football. There's a host of pictures of Alan with Scotland. I picked this one out. You can see that Alan and Andy Gorham are together on this Scottish photograph. This is the team for the Euro 96 competition in England. The manager on the front row at this time is Craig Brown, and Alan is obviously very much involved in all of that and sat on the bench when Gazza scored that famous goal against Scotland. Excuse me. In total, this may surprise you, it surprised me. Alan served the Scottish FA for 202 Scottish international matches, combining his work at this time between the Scottish FA, Man United, Millwall and Oldham. Alan then he was deeply involved in Scottish domestic football, became a full-time member of Rangers management team under Walter Smith from 1991 when Walter got appointed. And he was part of the Rangers organisation that eventually won 9 consecutive championships. Again, there's loads of pictures of Alan at Rangers. I picked this one out. Hodgie is on the back left with Rangers, and Walter Smith, who we became great friends with, is the manager on the front row. It was in 1992 that whilst he was at Rangers that Alan suffered a major heart problem, and he actually underwent emergency quadruple bypass surgery, which saved his life. But typically, he recovered and he returned to coaching. Amazing man. His next career, I'm going to call it, is with UEFA. Alan developed his ideas for an approved goalkeeping coaching award, and with Andy Roxburgh's assistance, the course, which included practical and theoretical parts for all age groups, was duly accepted by UEFA's technical committee. It remains today the standard applicable to working with youngsters up to keepers in the Premiership and at international level. It is in fact a lasting testament to Alan's expertise in the game. In his time, Alan went from training keepers in the mud to trips to France and Switzerland to conduct courses for UEFA, to visits to the USA, to give lectures to the National Soccer League's goalkeeping coaches. The courses staged by Alan for UEFA were essentially for goalkeepers, wanting to be coaches themselves. And he derived, great satisfaction from enabling numerous goalkeepers to attain their licenses, which in turn allowed them to become goalkeeping coaches. So in 1981, Alan has been working in England, and I'll tell you about his career in English football coaching at international level. In 81, he worked with Graham Taylor with the under-18s, and then when Taylor moved on to the under-21s, he worked with all of those goalkeepers, which included Gary Bailey of Man United. And then Robson, the England manager, Bobby Robson, asked Alan to work with both Shilton and Clements. And it was whilst waiting for a possible appointment on a permanent basis with England that Alan was approached by Roxburgh in Scotland, and that's when Hodgie's career, as I've explained, went south.
North.
North of the border. So after the Euros in 1996, which Alan was on the bench for, he went back to working in England throughout the rest of the 90s and noughties, based from his family home in Rugby. And in 2002/3 season, he was appointed a member of the Coventry City management team, working for player manager Gary McAllister. And that's a nice picture of Alan with Gary McAllister and Eric Black, who were the management team at Coventry. I'm sure Jonathan remembers that period. And he was there and worked, conscientiously with the goalkeepers at Coventry City. Excuse me. Finally, Alan's final coaching position in England, he moved to Oxford United at the invitation of the manager and his friend Jim Smith. And then he worked for his successor, Chris Wilder, which Alan Hodgkinson had recommended to Jim Smith to be the successor and the manager of Oxford United. And we all know what subsequently happened after that. Alan coached the Oxford goalkeeper Ryan Clark when Oxford reached the national playoff final at Wembley. So he went back to Wembley in May 2010, and they duly won 3-1 to get back their Football League status. Some of you might be intrigued. I found this picture. That's on the turf at Wembley after the game, after they've won the game and won back their league status, and that's Chris Wilder and Alan Hodgkinson. And Hodgie was so proud of that, incredibly proud. Just to finish, guys, everyone has to retire eventually, even Alan Hodgkinson. In 2012, at the age of 76, he finally decided that he would retire from being a coach on the field of play. And that ended 60 years of involvement. It is the longest continuous association of any man in professional football in the history of the game. Alan had been given the MBE for his services to football in 2008. He wrote a very successful autobiography in 2013. It's over my shoulder on my shelf at the back there. And it's called Between the Sticks, which I thought was a good title. And he went on to enjoy a few years' retirement with his wife, Brenda, and all the close family. He tended his allotments in Dunchurch, and he visited Bramall Lane whenever he could, whenever he was invited. Excuse me. Just to finish, in 2014, Alan Hodgkinson was voted into United's greatest ever 1960s 11 at the club's 125th anniversary awards ceremony at Ponds Forge, a ceremony that he was unable to attend due to being at that time in ill health. He was also voted in the top 20 of all-time United players, and he was the only goalkeeper in the first 11 of the named players. This is the menu card from the 125th anniversary at Ponds Forge. You can see at the bottom of the menu that Alan Hodgkinson is indeed featured, along with many players: Hagan, Edwards, Dean, Tony Curry, etc., Jackie Elker. So that was a proud night, and he saw the recording of that from his home. Well, that's my summary of a great man's career. I found it quite difficult because there's so much in that career to try to summarise, and I hope I've tried to do Alan, who was a good friend of our family. I've tried to do him proud. He passed away in the Coventry University Hospital. He was surrounded by his family, and he died on the 8th of December 2015 at the age of 79. That's part one of Alan Hodgkinson's story. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Have any of you got any recollections of Hodgie playing? I'll kick it off. The first one I can remember, well, I saw him before this, but when United got to the semi-finals, I think it was, of the FA Cup, in the third round, we won 1-0 at Everton. And it was the first time, if you remember, the Sunday People used to rate every player out of 10, didn't they?
Yeah.
Those days. And Alan Hodgkinson that day, it was the first time I'd ever seen a player get 10 out of 10. And apparently he was phenomenal in that game, as he was in lots of games.
In that season, Keith, where they had all those replays against Leicester, Alan actually played 7 FA Cup ties. Well, normally you win the FA Cup if you do that. But he played 7. Amazing number.
6.
He played 7 and didn't win. Amazing.
Yeah.
Going back to Sunday People, Keith, I got 10 from Sunday People. Only trouble were it took me 6 weeks to do it.
I saw most of those, Brian.
Jonathan, in case you're not aware, Brian used to be a Football League referee.
Yes, I'd sort of rather work that out. Yeah.
Right, okay. I was going to say, I thought you were going to say.
I think Alan Hodgkinson was very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Ron Springer.
Big Paul.
Yeah.
Of course.
He would have had a
2 seconds,
bag
Paul.
full of England appearances if it hadn't been for Springer.
Yeah, although at one time, Bolton's goalkeeper used to get picked in front of him, Eddie Hopkins.
Hopkins.
And he wasn't a patch on OJ. He was, I don't know why, but he wasn't a patch.
Well,
Kept spelling his name wrong.
Yeah. Big,
I was just going to. I was going
it
to
was
ask.
actually a typo.
let Big Paul get in.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Chris. Interested to hear he was born in Lawton.
Yes.
To know where in Lawton he was born.
I'm ever so sorry. I don't. Paul,
No. That's.
No.
I was interested.
He was born there, but he grew up in Thurcroft. The family home was in Thurcroft. But other than that, no, I'm ever so sorry. No.
So I know that area very well. You see,
Really?
I've been. Well, I worked that area for 9.5 years.
Oh right.
Lived in Dinnington and worked there for 9.5 years. But
I'm probably going to pass it back to you and let you do the research.
Yeah, indeed. Because I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Having listened to your presentation, it's worthy of a plaque, isn't it? Where they were born, sort of thing. You know.
Well, any man who gets the MBE and then does what he did, I think I'd agree with you. Yes.
Yeah.
If it's still there, of course. I hope it is.
Those stats you come out with, Chris, just show you how some people like Hodgie were true pioneers of this sport.
This is why I did it the way I did it. Yes, there's the man who played football and he was brilliant and he was loyal and he was everything, all the things we've said. But his coaching careers and his initiatives and the work with UEFA and what he did at 202 international games for Scotland, I agree with you, Ian, it is stunning. I did it that way because I wanted to highlight other parts of his career. Because when you go north of the border, sorry I said south, when you go north of the border, people forget you a bit.
Can I just go in there, Keith?
He's up there.
Yeah, let's face it, he had his work cut out with Scottish goalkeepers, didn't he?
Yeah.
He is credited. That's why Roxburgh appointed him, because they went from jokes to world class. World class. And that's not a coincidence why that happened. It's all about technique.
I've just looked on my phone, Keith. It says he was born in Station Road, Lawton Common.
Oh.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Wow.
Station Road, yeah.
Not got the house number though.
Do you know it, Paul? Do you know Station Road?
Yeah. I know.
Wow.
I mean,
Thurcroft as well, like,
Yeah.
I mean, my recollection, other recollection of OJ was when we came out for the game.
Yeah.
at Bramall Lane, he'd always come out, and as he's running towards the Kop, it'd be, Hodgie, 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 Hodgie.
Yeah.
And like firing two pistols into the crowd every match.
Yeah.
And the crowd loved him, and he loved the crowd. He wasn't one of these players who was aloof from the crowd. And I remember once we'd been, me and Sue, we went to Cardiff to see United, and unfortunately we got thrashed that day 3-0. But the weather was awful, and Cardiff coped much better with the surface than what United did. And on the way back, we'd stopped at some services, and United's team stopped at the same services and got off. And a few of the fans, other fans that were there, were getting a bit uppity about the lack of performance. But Hodgie actually spoke to them and said, look, you have to take into account the conditions were shocking, and they just adapted better to it than what we did. He never shied away. He wasn't one of the people who would walk away from that kind of thing. He was a smashing bloke, and